Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Full Contact Podcast. I am Dean, joined as always by the podcast Papa Bear, the best of the beards. Bob, thank you for joining us. Today, we are going to have a doozy of a subject of democratic socialism. We have been seeing an uptick in the election of democratic socialists into, at the very least, regional lower level office, but it's starting to take headway, and there's a possibility that it could start reflecting even into the federal realm.
Mm-hmm.
So, what exactly is it that is causing this rise in popularity of the theology of democratic socialism in America within our elections?
You mean ideology?
Ideologies, I mean, yeah, sorry.
Theology is God. It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Graham Platner ended his campaign.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they couldn't cover up for him anymore. But isn't that just a quick side on Graham Platner? Wouldn't I mean? What about the hypocrisy there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, Democrat Party, the party of Me Too, the party of, believe women. They tried to bring down Supreme Court justices, Donald Trump for, certain comments with Billy Bush and, all this sort of thing. They still, talk about those to this day. But then this Graham Platner guy who clearly had issues in that same area, they basically loved on him. I mean, they ignored it. All these, pundits and the same people that would just tear up Donald Trump for this. You're like, well, he made mistakes. He owned up to it.
Well, that's because he spat the narrative that they wanted to. He was very big as being a democratic socialist, and that's what the huge movement has been pushing towards. I mean, God knows that Bernie Sanders has been kind of really leading the charge on this whole thing, from the standpoint of, I guess he's on the way out, and I'm guessing this is what he wants to be his legacy. But look at like the rise of people like Mondami and AOC starting to
Yep.
get headway on this realm. So it's like it's if at the end of the day you believe in certain things, it almost seems like regardless of what your past was, they're gonna find a way to justify it until they can't anymore. So it's not even a matter of they're trying to play the moral game. It's just really a matter of it's politics. They're trying to get forth what they
Yeah.
want out there.
So it's like tribal. He's one of us.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of us. So we're gonna ignore all these things that we would never ignore from our opponent. We would, So we're.
It's a distraction tactic, in my opinion. They're like,
Yeah.
oh no, this, that, and the other. He's good now. We've reformed him. He's spitting what we want to spit. He's spitting real shit. This,
Right.
that, and the other. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but
Well, and they would. So yeah. So there's some true believers who would say, well, Graham Platner did admit to it, and he did say he was wrong. So if Donald Trump were to just say that, George W. Bush tried that.
mm-hmm.
He tried admitting he was wrong. They just make it worse. We told you, see, he even admits it. All right. So, there's no grace given to Republicans who admit to any wrong. It's exploited.
Oh, yeah.
So, you cannot play that card. I mean, the
No.
history is just
Like getting off the subject of Graham Platner and his special tattoos and questionable bedroom antics. What exactly has been triggering the rise of democratic socialism? Now, democratic socialism has been around a while. Like even dating back to the early 1900s. You mentioned George Orwell, for
Right.
example, was actually a democratic socialist, and that his works were more pointing out being anti-totalitarianism.
right.
What exactly is democratic socialism, and what is causing it to become so popular now?
On a political strategy level, what's happening. And I think it's always useful to know that. So when I talk about critical thinking and, especially when you consume news and whatnot, a big part of that is to understand people's biases and their agendas and what profits them. There's a political analysis, a strategy from the standpoint of Democrats and Republicans. But then there's also the on the side of the voter, like what are the people going through and so in other words, who's going to win the people over. So let's do can we do the political one first, just to get it out of the way?
Yeah, let's get the vegetables out of the way first, then we'll get into the meat and potatoes.
All right. So Donald Trump rebuilt the Republican Party. In a sense, he tore it down and then rebuilt it under a different coalition, and that would be the working class. So I've always been a Republican since I turned 18. A Reagan Republican. My family was all Democrat. My community was all they were all working class Democrats. But anyway, so what happened though between John McCain and Mitt Romney, I just became so disgusted by the Democrat Party, or I'm sorry, became so disgusted by the Republican Party that I just grew disinterested in politics. I'm like, oh. And the reason was I felt like the Republicans were not talking to regular people. So I believed in the, conservative principles of the time, not socialism, but capitalism and, freedom and individual rights and things like that. Now, those are classical liberal things, but in United States politics, they were conservative. So my problem was I believed in those things because I thought they were good for everybody. And I felt like the Republicans, all they spent their time on was talking idealistically and using these highfalutin, political terms without relating to regular people, without explaining to the regular working man, the people struggling, why these are good principles, why these things are how they're going to help them. And the Democrats always did that. And the Democrats, then over the years started addressing more of the minority groups and, things like, so they're always picking out these, groups of people and telling them, we're for you. We're speaking your language. We're going to represent you, that kind of thing.
So what you're saying is there was kind of like a polar shift where the Republicans started focusing more towards what's best for everybody, like individually.
Well, the polar shift was Trump.
Right.
So I grew disillusioned. So, one of the things that the Republicans always did that bothered me, it was they would capitulate to the media. So they would say or do something, the media would report it as racist, and they would run to the next microphone and apologize for even if what they said wasn't racist. So it became an easy way to manipulate them. So Donald Trump was in the primaries. I didn't think Donald Trump. I thought he was funny, and I didn't think he was a serious candidate. I was driving home from work, and I heard on the radio they said he was headed to the southern border. He was going to speak at the border. He had been saying that the border, we have criminals coming across and drugs and all this thing. So the media was reporting that as he is calling Mexicans and Latin Americans criminals and all these horrible things. So he was saying that this is a problem at our border. They were saying that it was a racist thing to say. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I heard he was going to go to the border and speak. So I was driving home and I was fully expecting him to backpedal, to say, I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean to offend anybody, and soften his approach. So I get home, I turn on the news. I got home in time. The podium was there. He wasn't there. He shows up. It was the first time he wore the MAGA hat. He previewed the MAGA hat. He got in front of the podium, and there were Hispanic people, a few of them behind him, and he doubled down. He didn't back down. He doubled down on what he said. He restated it. And he said, I'm not racist. He said, Hispanics love Trump. He started talking about himself in the third part. He talked about how many Hispanics he employs. And, I loved the fact that he didn't back down from the media. And I thought it was hilarious when he started talking in the third person. And I was on the Trump train from that moment on. I thought this guy is unique and different, and just I just love the fact that I felt like my ideas, my political views, finally had a representative who wasn't going to back down. And he even went further. He started representing. I mean, he insulted the Republican establishment. He called their crowning achievement of the neocons, the Iraq War, the biggest mistake that he'd always been. He insulted the Bush family. Was like, wow, what is this going on? But he was reaching out to the working class people, and I'm like, this is what I was thought was missing from the party. Donald Trump gained a foothold, white males, um, and working class voters. Okay, they tried. The Democrats did a lot of insulting those voters, calling them uneducated, and we're better because we have all the educated people and we have the suburban white women and all the, so. But
I seem to recall Hillary Clinton calling people like us that deplorables.
well, so yeah, what I see happening strategically is after they lost big, with Kamala Harris, they realized they can't ignore white men. They can't keep insulting them, and they need to reach out to the working class. So that's what they're trying to do. They know that the working class are struggling. They know the housing, the cost of living, the wages aren't keeping up, and that's what they're going after. Their Democrat Party was built on that stuff, okay, and they're trying to take it back. And Trump's term out. He's going to finish this term, and now that doesn't mean he won't still be an active member of the Republican Party. I think he may be, but he's not going to be president. He's not going to run for office anymore. So I think they're looking at this as an opportunity to steal back the voters. So Graham Platner they saw him as they had him portrayed him as a blue collar, what was he, an oyster farmer, that he was going to be attractive to the white men, the working class
Veteran.
In fact, so this is the trend that you're seeing. So Mamdani's not that. I mean, but he's in New York City. So Mamdani's I think he's is he a second generation or I don't
No,
know.
he was born not in this country. So
Okay, so he's a first
he
generation
he was
immigrant.
he was raised here,
Right.
but he wasn't born here.
Okay.
He's been pretty much
Okay.
naturalized from a very young age.
Okay, so there's the socialist. You have AOC and you have Mamdani. But when you look at a Graham Platner, the reason I think they targeted him is they're going after, the Trump coalition. If they can start stealing those demographics away from the Republican Party, they can start winning elections. I think that's what they believe.
I can sense a lot of irony in that. Oh, veteran, Nazi tattoo, a lot of issues being a misogynist, and that's going to get voters. But how badly did that blow up in their face?
Let me ask you: I don't know. Is there a Republican who can speak to the working class the way Trump did?
As of right now, not to his level.
Right.
From what, at least out of the poll of individuals that I've seen. I remember, funny enough, when these election cycles were going around, the one individual, especially this most recent one, when the primaries came around, I actually didn't vote for Trump in the primaries. I went for Vivek Ramaswamy.
Okay.
I liked him because and he now was actually born here, but he's a minority. He's of Indian descent, but he was just some dude from Ohio, and he got very successful in business. And I felt like he was very professional, very articulate, and he sounded very America first, which is what attracted me to him. Now, whenever he didn't succeed in the primaries, I obviously backed Trump because I was not going to be backing Joe Biden or anybody else like that because I was completely against their message.
Right.
But as of right now, the top two that I could say would be my choice to run in the next cycle so far. Marco Rubio is one of them.
But do you think that he has that same? See, one of the things that you'll see during a campaign is people that are sort of Republican. They go on the street and they ask Democrats, "Give me one issue why you're voting for, Kamala Harris," and people struggle to articulate a real issue.
Mm-hmm.
They do that with protests and vice versa. Democrat kind of pundits do that to Republicans. And they what they're trying to do is say, look, these people are stupid. They don't even know why they're voting for this person. Well, there's a reason for that, and the reason is everybody's the same. They vote a feeling. Okay, those all the things they talk about in the issues play into that. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, they're voting based on who they feel like is going to do the better job for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason. So every time you ask that question, the better question is probably, you know, what's your rationale? Why are you voting for this? Instead of, kind of pigeonhole to some logical decision, because it's very much not a logical decision when people vote.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess that really depends. And I think that's one thing of why a lot of these democratic socialists are getting elected now because
Right.
I think that their strategy with hold it is actually kind of genius about it because um, when you look at they're really involving a lot of the reasons why people are attracted to all this. And I've noticed with democratic socialism, what's one thing that it centralizes towards a lot? The younger generation, the ones that are now coming into the working class. I've read that I think right now about 50% of Gen Z favors democratic socialism over the reasons over anything else. And I was curious, why is it that these things are gaining popularity? And whenever I was doing some research, it's like, okay, they're playing the smart game by going into the younger generations, and like in the younger generations tend to have more influence, and we're starting to take over more, and the reasons why are very relevant. And I've noticed throughout even parts of my own life, inadvertently or unintentionally rather, there were times that I would have positions that were kind of democratically socialist in their own opinion, in their own way, and I didn't even realize it. Like so,
Like what?
so one of the big like I have a list here of various reasons why like it's been gaining popularity through different research. So one of the reasons is divergent economic realities. Us millennials and Gen Zers, we are facing very different economic realities to like say when it came to Gen Xers and Boomers. We're having higher, like we've talked about this before, higher housing costs. Wage growth is stagnant comparative to inflation, and an astronomical amount of student loan debt with no, pretty much almost no end in sight to getting rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it basically we feel the younger generation feels like the upward mobility is becoming more difficult. Where that goes into the next one, the reason a part of it is because they're becoming more disillusioned with establishment politics. If you look at democratic socialism, yes, it's being promoted more by the Democratic Party, but the one thing that I've noticed about a lot of these Democratic Party candidate or Democratic Socialist candidates like Mondani and some of these other ones being elected, unlike your standard white meat Democrat, they do not shy away from speaking the quiet part out loud. They have no problem looking at the Democratic Party of this is where you are screwing up and this is why we're going to fix it. They they sound more genuine from an outside perspective. You could look at them and it's not like, oh, they're catering to their party line. They're speaking, you listen to them talking, you're like, they actually believe this and they're going to do what they can to make this a reality. Um,
So that's a feeling.
it is all based off of feelings, but
Well, and which is what people vote based on.
yes, but it's also in a way that they're trying to steer it in a direction where they can at least attempt to attach logic behind it, and people are finding it to be very
Well,
attractive.
okay, so platforms, I'm not saying platforms and logic don't mean anything.
Right.
Okay. I'm saying that when people cast a vote, it's not a mathematical formula. Nobody sits down and writes down all the pros and the cons of each candidate, this and that. They develop a sense for who they think is going to be the better person for them, and they'll vote for them. That's all. I'm not trying to say people don't think. I'm not trying to say that, these other issues don't matter. But, like, for example, Hillary Clinton was the most qualified candidate ever, is how they pronounce her. So if you're someone who, is Democrat, you're leaning, Hillary anyway, and you go up on the street and say, why are you voting for Hillary? They might say, because she's the most qualified candidate ever. So you just gave a rational answer. But the most qualified candidates don't always win. Barack Obama was not qualified. Trump was not qualified.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so and however you define qualifications, like all this time in government and things like that. But in reality, a lot of people don't want that. They got to a point where that was not a good thing. So that's all I'm saying is, they're battling, and that's why they use the scary rhetoric and things like that. Because they're trying to play against your feelings. If they can scare you away from the other guy, they're going to get you to vote for get you to vote for us. That's what it is. So it's all feeling. But again, I just don't want. Sometimes I say things like that, and people think that I'm pretending that people aren't, thinking and rational. And no, they are. I'm just saying when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, it's a feeling.
Oh yeah.
And how you process this competing information and things is going to, again, that's going to be your instinct, your experience, and, a lot of feelings.
Oh yeah. And I mean, like, let's be honest here. Feelings are going to trump logic a lot of the time. We tend to be a more emotional society versus logical anyways.
You don't know, okay?
Yeah.
Because, it's intentionally in a campaign, Republicans will talk about, what's great about them and what's bad about their opponents and vice versa. So you've got, and negative campaigning is very persuasive. So if I tell you, he's a nice guy, he's pretty smart, he's this or that, but man, you can't trust him because he rips people off. Guess what? The negative stuff has more impact. Okay. Yeah. That's people are going to define you by the negative. So when it comes down to voting, there's so much of that. There's so much negativity and that it's so difficult then to come down with. So you come down, you want to vote for this person, but it's so difficult to, articulate that, especially to somebody who's not asking the question in good faith.
Right.
In other words, they'll couch it and say, well, they'll list 5 negatives of that person. So why are you voting for them then? If that's the case, well, you're like, it's hard to answer those questions. That's all. That's all I'm saying. So, it's they know what they're doing. These parties know what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
So that's why you heard me say I didn't. What the strategy behind this is to reach those people and to pull them away from Donald Trump. That's the strategy. Okay. The issues that they talk about and things are tactics. That's part of it. Okay. But it's the overall message. So, like, I think what you were saying, people, okay, housing is too expensive. What are we going to do about the housing problem? Student debt's killing me. I don't make enough money. We went to college and, I'm not making enough money. So these are the problems people are talking about. We can't have kids because we can't afford childcare, all that sort of thing. So you'll get what are the Republicans saying in response to that? Nothing really.
No. And
But
I
what
think
are
that's why some people really have issue with that is because they want those are very relevant questions that people want answers
but
to,
what are
especially the younger generation.
so what are the Democrat socialists saying? They saying, well, we're going to tax the rich.
Hmm.
Okay, well that's good. That feels good.
It definitely feels good.
We're gonna provide child care. Okay, the government should help you, pay for child care. Ooh, well, that feels good.
Hmm.
We're gonna bring down the cost of housing. Okay, okay. And now if I come along and I'm going to do this, okay, I'm going to free health care. I'm going to give you free health care. They're like, oh, that's good. Now I can shoot holes into that stuff, okay, but unless the Republicans are offering something alternative that speaks to the problems they're having, then it doesn't matter how many intellectual holes you shoot in it.
Hmm.
People are still going to vote that way.
Right, and one of the
But let's
poll.
not forget too, one demographic like Gen Z or whatever it is, they're
Mhm.
not. It's not all about Gen Z.
No.
Okay, so you have to get enough people over. You know, so
Well,
in
why
other
do
words, the
you?
Democrats have their base.
Hmm.
Okay, they've got the suburban white women. They've got the minorities. Trump made some real progress with the Hispanics. The older voters. So Republicans aren't just going after young people; they're going after the working class.
Hmm. And I think, at least from the Democratic Socialist standpoint, like they have the older generations that believe in it. I mean, look at Bernie Sanders. He's basically I would call him like the modern day
Yeah,
godfather of the Democratic Socialist movement in America. But it's more influential on the younger generations because more of them they're more coming into power of things. We have people from my generations now going into political office now. So
yeah.
we're starting to go, we're kind of in that transitionary period. And again, one of the greatest things about like the genius parts of democratic socialism is that it plays into feelings. And the younger the generations they get, the more kind of decisions they base off of feelings. And you probably know that you've probably observed that to be true too. Like I make fun of it all the time because I can be more of a logical thinker over emotional, but a lot of people I know in my generation are very emotional thinkers, and even I've been caught up in it from time to time myself. Uh, well, one of the I think probably the most attractive part of democratic socialism, from a feeling standpoint for people, especially the younger generation, is kind of you still have the ability to have private enterprise, but it's not allowed to get too big. So it's basically dumbing down or cutting down the establishment is kind of the big thing. Where and even I've felt at times where what's one of the biggest things I always hated about politics. I always felt like you had like all these special interest groups, lobbyists, large corporations who have a great influence in our elections, and they have been for a long time because they will provide financial resources to these candidates. They will donate to their campaigns and whatnot. And that's not something I necessarily agree with. Oh, Tony Gonzalez.
Okay.
For the past couple election cycles, he had been competing with an individual who's a social media influencer that I follow by the name of Brandon Herrera. I think he might be a few months younger than I am. And
Herrera is
Brandon Herrera. He's
okay.
a successful YouTuber, grew multiple businesses. He just recently clinched the nomination, and he's the only candidate since Gonzalez has took office that was able to put him into a runoff election, and he did it twice in a
Mm-hmm.
row. But this
Okay.
time around, he ended up winning. The reason why he is an attractive candidate to someone like me is because his donors were all low level individuals, like basically go door to door, family houses. They provide $10, $50, $100. That's how he ran his campaign. And a lot of it he bankrolled himself from the funds from his business. He doesn't have that outside influence, though. Those that work for corporations don't feel like they're being treated fairly. And even I will agree with that 100%. Being in the corporate workforce for the longest time, being basically what they consider the low level peon, we always feel like they could be paying us more based off of the fact of these companies make astronomically like huge amounts of money, and we all know a lot of these corporations will cut them, like these executives will cut themselves very nice bonus checks at the end of the year, but nothing gets passed down to us. Like the low level guy might get a gift card for $25. Wages, like obviously wages not keeping up with inflation and all that, so it's making it more difficult to live. And I think the other big part of it, and again, this goes based off of feeling that one of the hard parts that some of the, especially the younger generation, deals with working in the corporate work world, but you're treated not so much as a human in that position, you're treated as a number. And I think that's one of the big things with democratic socialism is they want to basically put in that kind of they're trying to claim we can regulate that morality, which we all know in practice doesn't really translate. But it feels good to think of, hey, I'm going to hold these major corporations accountable and you're going to start getting treated right. It feels great.
Well, yeah. So that's the victim villain dynamic that politics uses. So, you describe how it feels. Corporate America, who's sticking up for me? Well, politicians will specifically, Democrat, socialist, they're going to talk about how evil the corporations are and how they got to start, their talk against their record profits and this guy making all this money, this guy, and that feels good to you. You feel like I've got someone in my corner who feels like what I do,
100%.
what I have. So, the question is, what are they going to do to change your situation? And I would say in that respect, absolutely nothing.
No.
It's the oppressor oppressed. It's, the victim villain. And, we're going to come along and Bill Clinton's famous phrase was, I feel your pain. I feel your pain. Okay. So, by the way, he was probably a close second in the best campaign I've ever seen. So he ran a great campaign too. But, okay. So, I get that. And that would I explained my frustration with the Republican Party not taking what I thought were the right policies and principles and not communicating to those people, the regular working people. Trump did that. Okay, Trump's riding off into the sunset soon. And I think the Democrats are trying really hard to pull that back. And the question is, what are the Republicans going to do to counter it? Here's the question. What do you do to make your situation better? So you can vote for somebody who feels your pain. Okay. Like the guy, the Herrera. Okay. He's all independent money, small donors. He's not influenced by corporate interests, right?
Correct.
That was Barack Obama. Okay. Barack Obama was the micro donor. The first, one by using social media. Okay, so they hailed that as, absolute genius, absolute wonder, beautiful strategy on Barack Obama's part. He got small donors and he'd use social media. What a genius. Donald Trump, same thing. Donald Trump comes on the scene, funding his own campaign.
Which is another reason why I voted for Trump in the general elections, because I found that to be attractive.
Sure. Speaking, actually actively opposing the donors and the Republican establishment. He used social media. Suddenly, social media is an evil manipulation, and we got to coerce the social media companies into filtering the candidate because now it's a bad thing because the Republicans doing it. That's one of the strategies those two guys used. I don't think anyone any longer is saying that Barack Obama is an independent, not influenced by outside interests, and they're certainly not saying that about Trump. And the same thing's going to happen with your guy. If he's successful, it'll happen.
Oh, I'm
I mean,
sure.
part of it is the way. And now, I'm not saying it'll happen as a senator. I mean, you look at
Well, in his case, it's congressman.
or congressman, but look at Rand Paul. Rand Paul is Rand Paul. So he hasn't changed. Bernie Sanders is Bernie Sanders. So let's talk about some of the issues. Free health care.
Hmm.
How do you feel about free health care?
It sounds great,
Yeah.
but in reality, it's not any government involvement in healthcare. What's it done? It's just driven the costs up.
Okay, so you wouldn't vote for somebody promising free health care?
No,
Okay.
because where's that money going to come from?
So you have health care through work.
I do.
Do you pay?
Yes, I do.
You pay. So the promise that the Democrat Socialists are making, they put out a document recently, but one of the promises is we're going to create universal health care. It's Medicare for all, and there will be no deductibles, no copays, no cost out of pocket to you. The government's just going to take care of it.
Yeah, my question is though, where my ability to free think comes into it. How much are my taxes going to go up to fund that?
Well, they're going to fund it with taxing billionaires, corporations and billionaires, all those bad people that you just described.
It sounds great, but when those people run out, it's going to be trickle down. Once you're going to have to find the money from somewhere.
All right. So conceptually, you think that there's not enough money in the billionaires to fund this.
And I mean, we've offline we've discussed the numbers.
Yeah.
If you tax the bill, I forget what the exact rate that you said that they wanted to tax these billionaires at. With the amount of money that would translate from that, it would not be nearly enough.
Well, so if and it's hard to predict everything in economies because once you change something, the future changes.
Right.
Okay. But if we take right now, there's about 70 million Americans on Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
Medicare, Social Security.
Allegedly, there has been a lot of fraud being pointed out.
There are about 160 million Americans who are getting their health care through work.
Mm-hmm.
Still the largest number. I can't remember how many Americans, but there's also a group that are getting subsidized through the Affordable Care Act marketplace. And then there's some Medicaid. Medicaid is kind of like the welfare, if you will, of healthcare. It's for people with no financial means. And then there's a fairly small percentage, if you will, of people that are uninsured. They don't have anything. So if I asked for all those people that are currently uninsured, how much would it cost to give them Medicare? The way Medicare is now, which by the way, there are deductibles and you have to pay for supplemental and things like that. So it's not totally free, not what they're promising, but it's Medicare. It's a big help. And the number comes back about $600 billion a year is what would be needed to give them. If we taxed the billionaires' income at 100%, we'd have enough money to pay for that. So you would have to tax billionaire income, give them an income tax of 100%. So for every dollar they make, we take.
Mm-hmm.
That would pay for that. Now, two things, okay? Billionaires and trillionaire, their net worth is not tied up in their income, okay? The high, especially the higher up you go, they have equity. They have assets that define their net worth. Elon Musk, it's in ownership of his companies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's when they start talking about the wealth tax. So we're going to tax you based on how much your net worth is, not what your income is, so that you can no longer avoid paying taxes to your fair share. That's the argument. So if now on the other side of it, the equation, if you adopt a policy of Medicare for all, what do you think is going to happen to health care provided by employers?
Well,
It's going to go away.
yeah, I guess, yeah.
Okay, so if the government says we're going to provide health care to everybody who doesn't already have it, no law requires companies to give you health care.
Yeah.
So what's happened in other countries is most of the workforce and things would lose their health care. Okay, so over time, you would no longer have health care, and they'd say, but it doesn't matter. You just go on the Medicare for all. But the higher ups, the people that they value more, that they can't afford to have them sick, because this universal health care is going to result in longer wait times, rationing. It always does. Okay. So the elites, if you will, in business, the people that the corporation doesn't want to miss work for extended periods of time, they're going to have private health coverage. So let's assume over time we get to a point where 75% of the people currently employed, paid for by their employer, would lose that, because it would just happen. How much then? The number comes about $1.8 trillion a year. Okay, current Medicare spending is, I don't know, it might be Medicare and Social Security, but it's like 1.2 trillion, so it more than doubled it. Now, at that rate, in order to fund that just with billionaires and a wealth tax, you would have to tax their wealth currently at about 25%, 25%.
And that's of their net worth. Just
Of their net worth. So that would mean Elon Musk would, of his, say he has $1 trillion, he'd have to pay 250 billion. That means he would have to sell his stock in order to come up with that money. So he would no longer be worth $1 trillion. He'd only be worth 750 billion in year 2.
Mm-hmm.
Take another 25%. Take another 25%.
It's basically they're just bleeding them dry.
So pretty soon there's no money left.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not only that, Elon Musk is no longer, why would he work? He's going to take, whatever money he can. First off, he'd leave the country. Mm-hmm. There's nothing, you can't force people to stay. So he would take steps, he would leave his companies. And so how many people does Tesla employ? What's the economic impact of a Tesla and a SpaceX on the country? So, in the case of an Elon Musk, you lose all that. Mm-hmm. So, but the point is, it's unsustainable. In a matter of 5 years, you take every billionaire would disappear. Mm-hmm. There would be none left. Mm-hmm. So now how do you pay for it?
The next level down.
The next level. Remember when Donald Trump said, we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it?
Yeah.
I don't know who believed that. I mean, to me, it was campaign rhetoric. It was, you remember I said feelings? Mm-hmm. So you had Democrats challenging, well, how's he going to pay for this? How's he going to pay for this? He basically neutralized that by saying Mexico is going to pay for it, even though it was sort of a tongue-in-cheek. Some people, I guess, believed it. Right? That's the promise here. If you're promising universal health care with only billionaires paying for it, it's just the same as Trump saying Mexico is going to pay for the wall. Mm-hmm. It ain't going to happen.
No.
Okay, so the taxes are going to come out. You're going to pay for it. The workers are going to pay for it. If you think you like that and you think that's okay because I'm paying a lot now anyway, blah, 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 close your eyes for a minute. Listener, close your eyes. I want to do a little exercise for you, okay? Picture boomers. Picture boomers out golfing, cruising, chilling down at the villages, living the good life, telling everybody to work harder, okay? Picture them, mm-hmm. All right? They're all collecting Social Security, all right? Mm-hmm. Who's paying for that Social Security?
Me.
And did you know, now at the end of the year, you file your taxes and you see a total number and you say, that's how much of federal income tax I paid. Mm-hmm. That's not all of it. 7.5% of every dollar you make, up to, I think an income is now 150 or 180K, right? But for the working man, effectively, 7.5% of every dollar you make is going to those boomers. Mm-hmm. That's what's funding their lifestyle, okay? Not only that, your employer matches that 7.5%. So that's payroll cost. All right. So you say, well, I'm not making enough money. If you didn't have Social Security to pay for it, that's 15% more of your top. So if you make 100, if you make 50 grand a year, right, that's $7,500. I'm sorry. Yeah, $7,500 a year. That's it's almost $600 a month.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you make 50 grand, that's $600 a month of your labor that's going down there. Because if the employer didn't have to pay that 7.5%, that's more money they could pay you.
Mm-hmm.
That's socialism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's free stuff. Somebody is always paying for it, and it's always going to be the working man. That's just the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you may get away with some smaller things, but I mean, the federal deficit, what is it now? I mean, we're losing, we're spending $1 trillion more than the federal government's taken in. And you want to increase the spending? So, I mean, why don't we fix that first?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so that's the reality of it is as tempting as it is to want to vote for that. I mean, the best case scenario is they don't do it,
Mm-hmm.
really, because Social Security is never going away.
No.
All right, it's built into the law that it will automatically reduce the benefit when it can no longer fund it. But I was told in the 1980s that there will not be Social Security is going bankrupt. It will not be there for you. That's what we were taught when we got our jobs in the 80s. It's still there. Okay. It's not going anywhere. I mean, once you give these entitlements out, they're very, very, very difficult to impossible to take away. So if the government decides to set up universal health care and you find out you don't like it, if you find out I don't like the health care I'm getting, I liked it better before, it's not saving me any money. If you realize all that, it doesn't matter. You can never undo it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never undo that. And Social Security is not going away. So that's the reality of these huge entitlement programs. How's that feel?
Oh no, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Like, if you want a really quick big fix into our economic issues, you want to have more money and all that,
Okay.
there needs to be a heavy reformation of all these different and social welfare entitlement programs,
Mm-hmm.
like Social Security, like Medicare, like Medicaid, food stamps. Not like I'm not advocating to get rid of them completely because there's been a developed dependency on it, but and I think that's one of the things that Trump is doing very well this time around. He's not making the political suicide move of just getting rid of it,
Mm-hmm.
but what he's doing is he's taking it, basically auditing the piss out of it.
Well, Republican, yeah, I'm sorry, good, yeah, fraud. So
Yeah,
fraud, yeah.
because I mean, we just saw with all the different stuff, and social media has been great for this. A lot of these different issues are tying in. Look at the whole illegal immigration issue. Whenever, like when all these illegal immigrants came over and through Biden's open border, not only did they be able to come in here and just stay here, but they have been literally sucking the tit of the American welfare system, where I know people, good people, who have it difficult, who do have a dependency on stuff like food stamps, for example, because of their situations, depending on what they are. But they are ones I would say that truthfully need it.
Mm-hmm.
But you got some illegal immigrant from insert whatever country coming in here and they're getting free housing. They're getting tens of thousands of dollars worth of food stamps, which blows my mind.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know how widespread those big numbers are. I don't think they get welfare, but your point well taken. I mean, they are the beneficiaries of programs. I mean, New York had laws in place that said immigrants something to do with immigrants. They had to provide housing for immigrants. So they had homeless people living on the street, but then they're paying for housing for immigrants.
nah.
These, and they're even if they're illegal.
Here's my hot take. You want housing for illegal immigrants? Literally send them back home.
If you recall, Mayor Adams was speaking out against it. He was saying, "Hey, this is going to ruin. This is going to end New York, as we know. We got to do something." And he said, "I'm the guy. I don't agree with it, but that's the law." He had to do it because that was the written law. He was, asking for them to change the laws. Well, they voted him out.
Yeah.
So,
It's just one of those things
so
where
what's the hope for people? I mean, I think the fraud is a good thing. That I think the Republicans are using to say, hey, you know, um, you know, the Democrats want to demonize the billionaires, and the Republicans are saying we've got all these, illegal immigrants. They're not even Americans or whatever they are, and they're defrauding our government, taking away benefits that you should have. So I guess there's something there.
the big struggle, I think, is these certain things that we want to find solutions for are really rooted in the sense of we cannot find a middle ground
Yeah.
between our elected officials on either side of the aisle. Everybody's on one, like, not very seldomly do you have someone that wants to meet in the middle.
Right.
Uh, we have to find, like, okay, here's the overcompassing issues, here's the various problem on each side. What can we take from each side, come together and be like, this is going to be our bipartisan solution. We need, and this is a type of thing where the solution is not one party's way of doing things over the other. We need to come to a compromise, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the problem we're having. And we're honestly, what's killing that whole prospect for everybody is the continued polarization. Go back to what we talked about
Well,
previously with the media. Like, we're polarizing ourselves within the media, this, that, and the other, that we're losing sight on. We're here and here. We need to be here in order to solve these issues.
do you want an example?
Please.
Bill Clinton won the election in 1992,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a Democrat House and a Democrat Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Clinton wanted to reform welfare. He couched it, rightly so, as a economic fiscal issue, but also as primarily a compassion issue. That the welfare system would, like, for example, rewarded it in it punished marriage, basically,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if a woman had a child, the more kids she had, the more money she got. If a man entered the picture who could earn, that would threaten the benefits, reduce or threaten the benefits. So they created this whole, system of, and people, when they had their kids, they would teach them how to, use the welfare system. So it created, and the other thing it did is if you have a fixed income on say a welfare, you can't own anything because if you own it, the government's going to put a lien on it. You can't buy a house or anything like that because the government's going to take it. If you get a job, let's say you get an entry level job and you want to start a career path. If you get a job making, I don't know, $500 a month, that's going to offset your welfare benefit. At some point, you'll lose it. So you're working for nothing. So it became a trap. And he was talking about, he presented it to the people on welfare as, we're going to help you. We're going to liberate you. We're going to, give you, dignity and the things that only Republicans talk about now, the dignity of work and, upward mobility, pride and, things like that, accomplishment, not to be trapped. The Democrat Congress opposed him on it. I mean, he couldn't get it done. They did not want to do it. Okay, they was like, we can't take people's entitlements away. Well, the Republicans with Newt Gingrich, there was a landslide midterm victory. Republicans took control. I don't know if they took control of the Senate, but definitely the House. So Clinton worked with the Republicans to do welfare reform. They put think of these things, work requirements,
Mm-hmm.
okay, time limits. If you're going to be on welfare, you're time limited now. You can't collect, for your entire life. You have to go to work. So all these kinds of things that you've heard talked about for unemployment and such, that's what they put into this. Now, the Republicans proposed a couple of bills that he thought was too harsh. He wanted like safety nets. He wanted to make it protect. He didn't want basically to kick everybody out in the street all at once. So he wanted to make sure single mothers had. So they tracked it. They called them leavers, people who left the welfare system and went to work, and stayers. So some of the stayers might be, let's say you're a woman and you have 6 kids, young kids, and you just can't go to work. So she would have stayed on the welfare system. I mean, the leavers far outperformed the stayers in terms of economic growth, upward mobility. So it was a tremendous success, and it was a Democrat president who was not afraid to acknowledge the problem, even though it was unpopular within his party, to take away these what you call entitlements. Then when the Republicans took control of the House, that's when they were able to get it done. And it's I don't think anyone looks back on it now as anything but a major success.
I mean, I don't know exactly what way they honestly don't even talk about it. And if anything, what they will talk about with Bill Clinton is his questionable under the desk antics.
Yeah.
So and they took away something that he did that was actually good based off of that because
Well, welfare, I mean, he was supposed to, they were going to usher in universal health care too. He gave that to Hillary. Yeah, he gave it to which, it's like, this is some major thing. Why would you give it to the first lady? But I remember soon after he took office, holding up the card and go, pretty soon every American's going to have one of these cards. And this card is going to guarantee you, hospital and doctors and everything else. I don't know. I didn't follow it. I was young, so I don't know what happened, but nothing happened really. So it didn't turn out. But again, after the midterms, he shifted back over to welfare reform.
So that's just a great example of, hey, you can work across party lines and get a job done. It's just a matter of like, what is that middle ground going to look like?
Right.
But the problem is everybody's so polarized to each other end, and they're so focused on like, hey, I don't like you because I think you're an asshole.
Yeah.
And you look like a Nazi, and you are a Nazi.
Yeah.
And you're a Messiah. It's all people want to just sit there and just personally attack people rather than come to an actual solution. And I think that's one of the big things that is hindering our ability to solve all these problems. We could fix the housing crisis. We could resolve a lot of these issues with workers not being properly compensated or treated fairly and this, that, and the other. But what's going to be done? Like, until you can just put your selfish bullshit aside and sit down and be like, okay, here's the goal we need to achieve as a team. What's going to get us there?
Well, I mean, it's the victim villain political dynamic just out of control.
And
so here, let's talk about something else that's economic. Okay. So one of the narratives floating around the Democrat Socialists is, nobody can become a trillionaire without stealing money from other people, essentially. Okay. Nobody earns that much money. Okay. That's the narrative. So the implication is that the more money guys like Elon Musk and the head of Amazon and these guys have, that's taking money out of your pockets. Okay. It's the wealth is a limited resource, and if it's too concentrated in one area of rich people, that means there's less left over for you. Wealth is created. Okay. I mean, just look at the, total GDP of the United States now versus 50 and 100 years ago. Okay. Elon Musk is worth more than the entire country was, 100 years ago.
Right.
So, by far. So, where did that money come from? if there was a limited amount of money to go around. Now, it's not printing money either. So let me give you an illustration. Let's say there's a guy named Donald. Okay. Donald's got $200,000 and he decides he wants to build a house and sell it. So he spends his $200,000. He builds a home. And the home now that it's built is worth $400,000 on the market. Okay. So let's say another guy, Bill. Bill, he's got $400,000 he's been saving up in the bank. I mean, it's a simplified illustration, so don't tell me nobody has $400,000, right? So he saved up his $400,000 and he sees the house. He goes, all right, I want to buy that house. So he buys that from Donald for $400,000. Now, Bill didn't lose $400,000. He converted cash into an asset. Mm-hmm. His net worth is still $400,000, right? Donald, he started with $200,000, which he spent. Okay, he put that $200,000 into the economy, so that paid construction workers and suppliers, people that deliver products and wood, lumber, materials, all that. All those people got paid. He got that back plus another $200,000. Okay, so when it began, Bill had $400K, Donald had $200K. That's a total of $600. Mm-hmm. Now Bill has $400, Donald has $400. There's $800,000. They just created $200,000 of value. Mm-hmm. $200,000 of wealth was created by that transaction. Plus, $200,000 was dumped into the economy to pay wages and buy food and things like that.
Exactly.
Those people used it, of course, to feed their homes, maybe buy a home, feed their kids. So, it keeps the economy going. So a lot of people benefited more than just, Bill and Donald. Mm-hmm. Donald says, wow, look at me. I just doubled my money. I'm going to build 2 houses. I'm going to do the same thing. He does the same thing. He just added another $400,000 of wealth created. So, now he sells 3 of them. He's got $1.2 million. You got 3 people with $400,000 homes. You just created wealth. So that's what it means when you create wealth. When Elon Musk became a trillionaire, it was because his company was a privately held company. He had ownership in that company. How much is that worth? Well, depends. Depends on what, you could get outside opinions. They could say, this is what we think it's worth. And it's only worth what somebody's willing to pay. So if he wanted to take his value out of SpaceX, he'd have to find a buyer. But instead, they go public. They go on the market. So all the shares of the company that he and other people owned, the investors that put in, and employees that he paid in equity because they didn't have money to pay them, suddenly they have an asset that they can now sell on the open market. So that's like cash. So when you have cash, you have $10, I can exchange that for $10 worth of product or services. When you have shares in a private company, you can't spend it like that. You have to find somebody who's interested to buy it from you. When it's public, there's an open market for it. You just openly sell it and convert it to cash. Mm-hmm. So right now, when Elon Musk made $1 trillion, let's say he added $1 trillion, I don't know what the number is. How much money did that take away from employees? How much did that take away from employees' salaries? Could he have paid his employees more if he didn't make that much money?
That's a good question.
Answer is zero.
No.
$0. $0. Because that's not income. That isn't money taken out of the company. That's the value of the company itself.
Basically, what determined him to be a trillionaire was basically he had his business publicly appraised, basically.
Well, no, I mean, when it went, the market priced it. So they went public at $150 a share, okay? You multiply that by how many shares outstanding, and that's the worth of the company based on the open market. That's the value of his company. So his shares that didn't really they were you could argue a value the percentage of the company that he owned before, but suddenly now it has a recognized universal known value.
Mm-hmm.
So he really didn't add anything except the ability now to sell his stock, which he's not going to do and he couldn't do
Right.
because it would tank the stock. If Elon Musk said, I want $500 million, I'm going to sell $500 million worth of SpaceX stock, it's going to tank it. The markets, nobody's buying 500 million shares, and nobody's going to want it if Elon Musk is selling it,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the company. So it's not liquid. It's value in the company that he owns. He can't go out and spend that on some yachts or buy an island. He can't do that. Okay, it's money in there. So, in the other point is a lot of these billionaires, well, probably all the billionaires, people who have net worth tied up in their companies, that money does not take out of the employee. That is not part of operations. When you have you have a home,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have expenses.
Yes.
You have mortgage, you have transportation costs with your truck, you have to buy food, you have to buy clothes, right?
Utilities.
Those are all expenses. So you have income to pay that. That's the money you get from your wages, okay? A company runs the same way. The income is called revenue. Okay, so for the most part, companies take in money by selling a product or a service. Now, those products and services don't come for free. You have to you have to pay for raw materials. You have to pay employees. You have to pay for rents and all the same stuff you do, utilities. Okay, so you have revenue, you have expenses. And there's different categories of them, but you have expenses that come out, and then at the bottom you have profits. Okay, the equity in the company doesn't fit into that anywhere. Okay, the value of the company is based on what, like, different metrics. So it could be a multiple of profits, a multiple of revenue. SpaceX has a very, very, like, historically high valuation. That means people are willing to buy that stock because they think what it's going to do in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but if the stock doubles tomorrow and Elon doubles his money, not $1 comes out of the pocket of, not $1 comes out of the company. Not $1 comes out of the pocket of one worker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because that's just the value of the company on the open market, trading and buying and selling shares of that company.
Mm-hmm.
So that the wealth was created when Elon Musk took those investors and used that money to build something, to sell products and services, and to pay people to build this value in this company.
Mm-hmm.
So he and of course the people with him created that wealth. Now, some will say, well, he did it on the backs of. Okay, well, if you have your lawn, if you're paying a landscaper, let's say, a family guy, he's a landscaper, he's been cutting your lawn for your whole life. You're paying him to do that. 20 years he's cut your lawn. At what point does he own your lawn?
He doesn't.
But you have that lawn because of the backs of his labor,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you have somebody coming in and repairing your house, building your house, as a matter of fact, you didn't build your house. You had laborers come in and put their sweat and their labor on the line, some of them very low paid, to build your house. Why do you have a right to own that house? Why don't they have it? Why doesn't it belong to them if that's the labor? Because they made a deal, right? They agreed to do this work for this amount of pay. Now, I'm not suggesting that people can get any pay they ask for. Okay, there are market forces, and there's real issues with the salaries and the pays that we have today. Okay, but the idea that Elon Musk became a trillionaire on the backs of other people's labor is no different than me saying, why should you even be allowed to own a house? Why should
Mm-hmm.
you, why shouldn't your landscaper be able to come and say, I now own this property. I've been cutting your grass for 20 years. You just paid me a little bit of money. That's my labor. I own it. Without me, you wouldn't have that lawn.
You're really starting to sound like a socialist right now.
Well, that's the logic, right? So why does anyone else have a right to Elon Musk's company that he built? So his money is not taking he's not taking money off of anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? He's building wealth and his wealth is tied up in the value of his companies. He said with Tesla, the reason that he negotiated that 500 billion to $50 billion package, okay, that they some activists. By the way, he had that rolling turn overturned finally. It went to the Delaware Supreme Court, and that $50 billion compensation package, it ended up being over $100 billion because of the time. It was all equity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the court said that this was ridiculous. They didn't know why lower courts would rule the way they did. Gave him his money back. Okay, he then said he was negotiating a better one. The reason he says he wants those deals is he wants to maintain controlling ownership of that company.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, if I'm going to do this work, he literally said, if I'm going to create an army of robots, that could take over the world, he goes, I want to be in charge of it. I don't want anyone having control over me. That's the reason he has the ownership. And he's the same way with SpaceX, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because when in the life of a company, big decisions about what to do, when to sell, that sort of thing is made by the shareholders. So he wants to maintain a controlling vote among the shareholders. He's saying, if I'm going to work here, if I'm going to continue to build for this company and do it, I need to maintain a controlling interest.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's doing.
And
So
honestly,
is
I
that
don't.
greed?
No.
Is that somebody living just to make all this money so that he can buy things and indulge himself? No. Is he stealing money off the backs of anyone? No. He's creating wealth, and the people that are giving him the money are doing it willingly because they want to own a piece of it.
Mm-hmm. It's and like I said, I don't blame him. Like if I was in his position, I'd be doing the same
Right.
thing. I personally know what it's like to be in some type of management of a business
Mm-hmm.
where you are you want to make these certain decisions, but you have somebody or a group of people that can shut you down of your ideas.
Right.
And I can tell you for a fact it's very frustrating when you especially and you can provide proof that what your idea could be profitable or it can improve some facet of the business itself. I learned one thing I learned in that experience was if I'm gonna be involved in some type of business where it's like managing, I better be freaking sure that I'm the one owning it in order to do it.
Yeah.
Or if I share ownership and management with someone, we have to make sure we are damn well on
Mm-hmm.
the same page. Which is where I feel like it's a situation where a lot of businesses do fail,
Right.
or it seems like some of these businesses will just kind of go all over the place, and then you're stuck in a situation where people don't feel valued. I don't recall, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I've never once heard anybody go public and say that they were dissatisfied being under the employment of Elon or one of his companies.
Right.
Never once.
Well, I mean, SpaceX IPO created a lot of millionaires out of regular people.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and that's how a lot of these startups are. So here's the difference. You were talking about your frustrations and struggles as a cog, as a number in a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, everybody goes through that. Um, the way to succeed, and not everyone can do this, and it can be hard. But what's the struggle that you're having, the struggle that people under 30 are having with buying a house and affording life and everything. We all had that same struggle. Okay. There's this misnomer that looking at in hindsight at where somebody is when they're 60 to say they had an easy path. They did not. Most people did not. Okay. But where you are correct is I think there's a real problem with upward mobility. How do you get out of where you are now to get to the other side?
Mm-hmm.
I think the opportunity it's harder now. College debt is absolutely a factor. Housing prices are absolutely a factor, and things happened in our economy and in our finance industries to cause these things. So I think they need to be addressed. But you know, I don't know what the answers are, and I'm not pretending to know to make it easy. In my experience, people that say we're going to give you free health care and rich people are going to pay for it, they have no idea how to fix the problems either.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I believe there are people probably in both parties, but I think generally the Republican Party does know how to do it. Whether they're going to do it or they care enough to do it or their constituents would let them do it. I don't know. I mean, it's both parties are just too ideological, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And Trump's gotten into a lot of trouble because he is such a pragmatist. So, a lot of people who are ideological and have wanted him to support their ideology, now they're disappointed because he's not doing it. Like going to war in Iran. I mean, you can certainly question that, but you know,
Yeah, I mean, being pragmatic in a world that's highly idealistic,
mm-hmm.
it's a struggle.
So the thing you need to do, the best way to advance yourself in the workplace is to create more value. Okay, add skills. Scott Adams talked about the talent stack. Okay, you don't have to be an expert at one thing, but each of us are gifted in different ways. So you need to gain experience, gain knowledge in a bunch of different areas, and then you combine those into something unique that nobody else has. That's build your own talent stack. You don't have to be the best at any one thing, but having how you combine all the different skills and knowledge and ability is, part of that is to do things. You know, be observant. You mentioned one YouTuber said that they spend 40 hours, 60 hours a week just researching topics. That's the kind of thing you have to do. If all you do is speak from the gut, you're going to run out of things to talk about that
Mm-hmm.
people, run out of things that people care to hear.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you know?
even take our experiences with this. I mean,
Yeah.
we're about at this point 4 or 5 episodes in, and there's plenty of times where there are certain things where we can talk about where we'll shoot from the hip, but
Yep.
there are some things that, like the socialism stuff, that we have to do a little bit of research and bring some stuff up. Like those bullet points I was talking about of
Yep.
why democratic socialism is becoming more popular in America, I had to do some research on that.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I
it's,
mean, be an observer.
yeah.
Learn from your experience, observe behaviors. Don't, always just get sucked down into the muck and mire of what's going on. But,
Mm-hmm.
try to observe situations, even on the job. Things frustrate you, about the way the process is, the automation, whatever. And in some sense you can do something about those. In another sense you can't. But what you can do is sort of observe and learn and make recommendations and try to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Contribute. That's what you should try to do. But the people who got rich at Elon Musk's SpaceX. So let's say you're a welder and you came out of it a millionaire. That for whatever reason, that welder chose to stay at that company that was paying him less than everyone else. That they didn't know if they were going to be around a week from now, a month from now. I mean, they were, that's what a startup is. I was in a company through the IPO. I was with it from very very early stage to the IPO, and I remember the company founder, after we went public, some of the press that people and press we were receiving. He says, some people think we're an overnight success. He goes, yeah, we're a 10-year overnight success.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't there when we couldn't pay the bills and we couldn't make a payroll. They weren't there when, employees were honestly told, we don't know if you're going to get paid this week, you know. So for whatever reason, people stayed. Some left, okay? But, some stayed just because they didn't have any better options at the time. For whatever reason, they liked where they were. They believed in the person. They believed in what they were being told the future was going to be. And those are the people at SpaceX that became millionaires. So there's risk. The people that, um, you know, for the most part, people that are rewarded the most also take the most risk.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, Elon SpaceX, they'll tell you how much is Tesla. How many times they almost went out of business.
Oh, yeah.
Did they take government money at certain points? Sure, they did, but they paid it back too.
Mm-hmm.
Why does government bail out business? Because it's good for the economy. That's the reason they do it, or that's the reason they should do it.
Right. I mean, as long as it's within the guidelines and it's in the interest of maintaining the economy and not because, oh, this is my friend's company, I got to save it for my own selfish interests.
I mean, the best thing to do for everyone is try to be in a field that you think has some upward mobility. That you're, in my case, I was in, now we talk about technology, and different things. I learned electronics. I took a, trade school class while I was in high school, and I'm like, this stuff's pretty cool. I really like this. I think I'm good at it too. So I pursued it. And for the most part, when I was younger, when people asked me what I did for a living, I had a hard time explaining it to them.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to explain even the industry we were in, motion controls, robotics. And they would be, I would try to explain, and then people they would say, you mean like computers? I'd be like, yeah, okay, computers. I mean, even though that didn't really explain what I did, I mean, but it turned out that was the right field to be in. I mean, I worked for small companies, small growth companies. So they were great opportunities. I was a technician, but I became an engineer and I became an executive because there were great opportunities to learn and grow, but they were risky. So, I don't know what the next electronics is. But that's what I think people need to do. Don't just, if you're in a job that just pays, that could end at any time. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, are you developing skills? Are you learning things? Are you growing? Are you going into, can you take that and use it somewhere else? That sort of thing. Try to find those things. Try to grow where you are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're in a larger company. One of the benefits of a larger company is there should be opportunities for advancement.
Yeah, and I mean, for the company I work for, at least in the position I'm in right now, there's not a lot of like advancement to like
Mm-hmm.
management, but I also know the company is expanding. They've
Yep.
just recently started up these new programs and bought out certain
Yep.
companies that the opportunity for expansion, whether it be just like a different ground level position to
Mm-hmm.
even on a management level, the opportunity is there. And like that's one of the reasons why I'm sticking around is because one, I'm good at it, and I have brought my own sense of value even at my specific location in
Right.
general, especially now that we've had to go through some adjustments because of a change in some staffing. I'm taking on a more of a role that nobody wants to do. And
Right.
I think I was like the only one that volunteered to do any amount of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in its own way giving me a new level of value.
Right.
And on top of that, it's actually making me a better employee because I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning a more dynamic stuff from what I was already used to. So that's why I'm sticking around with what I'm doing, even though it some people might not look at it as the greatest paying or it comes with a high level of scrutiny, but at the same time I do see the value in it and I'm comfortable where I'm at right now and I'm comfortable in my abilities.
Right.
Part of what I do involves us driving around. It's a driving based service that we
Mm-hmm.
have to do. We used to be able to create these routes that we have to do kind of on our own discretion, and for at least we're out of my group of people, we were always pretty good. We had high value of integrity. We took pride in what we did, and we wanted things to be the most efficient, the safest, and basically what gives the most opportunity for success. Whereas other
Right.
people would take that and abuse it to basically milk the clock,
Mm-hmm.
get more money out of it. And it's the industry I'm in. That sort of stuff is famous, which is why they're going to a more computer based automated routing system,
Right.
or as they call it, dynamic, in order to do that. It was a huge learning curve when that took effect.
Mm-hmm.
There were some people that was very difficult for them. They kind of had the big head. It was like, well, I know better than these people. I know better than this computer. This that, and that. They had a hard time separating from them. But I'm like, well, yeah, you might be right, but how is this benefiting you to just go do things your own way, other than you're just putting yourself in an opportunity to where you're gonna get fired?
Yeah.
So why not just lean into it and just try to make the best out of it?
Well, see, I think that's a good metaphor for what I'm encouraging people to do relative to the economy and politics and everything else. It's, you know, don't just think you're going to throw out the whole system and do it your way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
As some people
you know,
say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
people are making you promises they can't keep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a self-interest in the political parties. Um, things if you're sitting around waiting for things to change before you do anything, they may never change. I guess what I'm saying is work within the system that you have. Try to move yourself forward. Try to do better. Don't just, buck the system and get yourself fired,
Mm-hmm.
shoot yourself in the foot, but try to figure out how to get ahead and how to work within today's economy. And yeah, if you want to vote for a Democrat, socialist, or whoever you really think is going to do the best for the future, then you go right ahead. But don't wait around for that. Don't wait around for somebody to come and save you.
No,
I mean, I'm retired. Okay, I mean, I'm at the back end. I got way more life behind me than I do in front of me. So, this isn't about me. This isn't about, you know, protecting any money or anything like that. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, any of these changes that happen really aren't going to affect me. As a matter of fact, they would probably help me in the short term. When our plant, mom was kind of forced into retirement two years early, 2 years before I qualified for Medicaid, Medicare. So, when that happened, I went on the exchanges and I did a thing. And we were always worried about the cost of healthcare. We knew it was high. So I went on, I entered our information, and it came back $1,000 a month. I'm like, well, that's not terrible. $1,000 a month. Okay, we're going to be good. So that, first 8 or 9 months, whatever it was, I guess it was 8 months or less, we paid $1,000 a month for insurance. I thought, this is great. This stuff's really not as expensive as I thought. Well, by near the end of last year, I started hearing about the argument between Republicans and Democrats about the subsidies, the enhanced subsidies. I had no idea we were being subsidized. Okay. So I'm like, what's the enhanced subsidies? I found, those were something Biden passed during COVID so that more people would get qualified for subsidies. So there was a mathematical formula that said, here's your income. Healthcare costs should only be a certain percent of your income. And whatever amount above that it is, the federal government's going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We were getting that. I had no idea. Right. So, I'm listening and they're talking about whether they're going to pass it, whether they're not. I have no idea how it's going to affect us. Well, of course, the Republicans wouldn't approve it. So the subsidies ended last year. Health insurance for us went up to $2,800 a month. Now, we weren't getting $1,800 in subsidies. We were getting $1,000 in subsidies. Okay. So the 800 was a 40% increase in the cost of the health insurance. Now, I'm not happy paying $2,800 a month for health insurance. Don't, I mean, so if somebody says, hey, we're going to approve subsidies and we're going to give you money, I mean, yeah, the short term me is going to be like, thank you. Okay. But, the Republican argument was that because of these subsidies, the insurance companies are just allowed to raise them whatever they want
Mm-hmm.
because the federal government was a blank check. And I think they're right because the $2,000 a month health insurance went up to $2,800 just because of the subsidies, because they could. So, we're paying for that. I don't want to hurt the future generations. I don't want. So when I talk about, I think that, universal health care is a lie, I'm doing that for you and
Mm-hmm.
your brother and sister and, the grandkids. It's not going to affect me. I'm going to be on Medicare soon. I'm not. It's whether they pass it or don't pass it. We're living a retired life. So even if the taxes go up, it's not going to affect us that much. So, none of this has anything to do with me. And I think everyone, one of the knocks people have on boomers is they claim that boomers made decisions, short term selfish decisions that hurt the future generations. That's what I hear. Truthfully, yeah, I don't believe that anybody made decisions they thought were going to hurt their kids and their grandkids. You're assuming that they knew the ripple effect of these, policies. And I don't even know that those people can point to exact policies and things that happen. It's just a criticism. But my point is, now I feel like that's what's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
People are, you're in that situation that you claim boomers did the wrong thing. You're in a situation where, you only care about yourself in your current situation. You're not thinking about future generations.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they are. Maybe they're drinking the Kool-Aid and they think, okay, I want my kids to have free health care too.
And
But
that's
the point is, just look at that. I mean, Mexico is not paying for the wall.
mm-hmm.
Billionaires aren't paying for the free health care.
And I think it really kind of boils. And it's funny. I'll tie this back into our old social media post that did pretty well over the last couple of weeks. It was surrounding boomers and the college degrees. You guys, well, I say you guys as a general statement because I know you're late boomer, early Gen X. You're kind of you're a mixed breed on that one, but you genuinely thought, and at least at the time, the job markets valued those degrees. Now, it didn't even matter what the degree was. But you guys were running off the information that you had at the time, and somebody in our comments section made
Well,
a very
I don't have a degree.
yeah, you don't. Neither do I.
Mom's got an associate's degree.
I'm a college dropout.
Well, you should finish. You don't have that much.
Yeah, well, that potato, but
How much debt do you have from college?
none
Why?
because of you.
See, I'm told every day boomers just don't help their kids.
No, and that's where I tie to. Like, I'm blessed to have you guys is because you helped me.
Yeah.
But it's you when I'm talking about the general, just like the general groupings of people,
Yeah.
you're going based off of the information you had, and even projected down onto us as the
Right.
younger generation. We were going based off of what the information that you had that you were teaching us. It's now that things are shifting. The value of a degree, depending on what the degree is, has gone down. There are still some out there that are relatively valuable, but now we're starting to see there's now an uptick in the value of trades
Right.
and like blue collar based jobs because with the uptick of uh, jobs that require a college degree and all that stuff
Yeah.
they're now overinflated and there's not enough opportunity there. It took away from that lower pool, and now you can go be an electrician or a plumber making over six figures a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's It's probably just a ripple effect. It changes every so many years,
You know,
and
not everybody that's going to college should be going to college. That's
no,
not everybody can be a plumber or an electrician. It's just, you're not wired for that kind of work. I mean, it's just, but go ahead. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt?
but you can only go based off the information that you have at the
Yeah.
time, and you're learning all these things. Life is a constant rotation of learning,
Yeah.
learning shit as you go, and we're adjusting things. So, like, I'll
Mhm.
probably raise my kids in the sense of, if you want to go to college, that's great, but if you're going to do it, let's look at the value of what you're trying to study and
Yeah.
see how that translates into the work world.
Yep.
And if there's nothing there that would interest you that could translate into something profitable, let's look into other options.
Yep.
And also, you don't have to be dependent on these government subsidized loans to do it either. There's other ways you can get into college
Yep.
and get an education without having to put yourself in that
Yep.
crippling amount of debt. It's literally things that we learned as we go. I'm never going to tell, like I said, I'm never going to tell anybody, if you want to go to college, go to college. Just make sure you know what you're getting into and whether or not that education is going to profit for you moving
Yeah.
forward.
You have to make it a financial
Mm-hmm.
calculation. What's the value? Like if you're going out to buy something, what's the value in what I'm buying here? Am
Mm-hmm.
I getting value for my money? And if the college degree is not going to generate the income that you need, I mean, to go in assuming now it's pretty well known now. I don't think anyone can claim they didn't know that every college degree doesn't guarantee me a good paying job. you know, I think that's pretty universal. That
Mm-hmm.
should have been known before, okay? But the system screwed them.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what happened. The you had the fox watching the hen house.
And it really boils down to, and like at the end, kind of summarize everything up. If you want to have success and you want to be comfortable and you want to have happiness in your life, you either got to take it yourself or someone's got to provide it to
Yep.
you. And I think history has shown, maybe like, some people try to argue other certain cases, especially when it comes to democratic socialism, that where it works, but I tend to disagree on a certain level when it comes to overall prosperity versus just people's general happiness. But you just gotta get out there, learn, and figure it out, and just go through the successes and failures, and eventually you will find it. I mean, hell, like, I was not expecting a couple of clips of ours to reach the level of virility that it did. I was expecting it to be in the low teen, like in the double digits, maybe low 100.
Yeah.
But our one clip reached over 95,000 on TikTok and 75,000 on Facebook, and I think that's wild to me.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I build on that? And now, is this gaining us any profit? Absolutely not. But could it at some point? Sure. I'm willing to take that risk and invest the time and effort to do so. And
Well,
it's a
you,
matter of people finding that thing that they're willing to invest their time and efforts into to see if it translates into something profitable.
well, I mean, in a sense, if you want to make money off of something like this, you have like everything else in life, you have to bring value.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to bring your customer, your listener, something of value. So as we're going through this process, that's the one thing to keep working on is really working on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Watch the podcasts, listen, like through a Spotify, but also watch it on YouTube and critique yourself and say, what am I, how am I presenting myself? Do I come off right? Where can I make improve? I do it all the time. Where can I make improvements? Where, that sort of thing. And where, I mean, I think you need to become observant again and, dig into stuff. Look for, I don't know, like read news, follow news, talk to people, but kind of be an observant person and look for perspectives and angles that other people aren't presenting.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing. It's kind of like a talent stack. I mean, you bring your own unique experience, your own unique background, your own unique knowledge, and as you're processing current events and news and things like that, look for perspectives that other people aren't bringing.
Mm-hmm.
And, who knows, somewhere along the line that may translate into value for someone.
I mean, it seems to be translating for us, at least on a smaller level, and I feel like we're getting there, and I hope to keep that going.
Well, and for all you know, this what we're doing here, whatever skills and improvements and things you're making, are just setting you up for something totally unrelated that you don't even know about.
Mm-hmm.
So how to communicate and how to present yourself it's an important skill to have.
Mm-hmm. And that
So
it doesn't
work on it.
matter whether we're talking about podcasting, YouTubing, or your day-to-day 9 to 5 corporate
Yeah,
work job.
exactly.
Thank you, everyone, once again for joining us at Full Contact. Again, as always, I am Dean. This is my father, Bob. Take the time, like, share, subscribe. Join us on our social medias on TikTok, X, and Facebook. Engage into your heart's content, whether it be positive or negative. We love you all either way.